Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. This is Into the Weekend with BetDSI for NFL Week 3. I'm Peter Loshak, and Brent, the first thing I have to ask you about, I'm going to ask you about both of the Jets and the Indy game this week. The first thing I want to ask about, though, is, last week you told us the Sharps came in on Indy, but then we saw the line close at about 6. Of course, the Jets got the big win. Do these NFL Sharps that you have on your list, do they actually make money in the NFL, or what's the deal with them?
I mean, if you look at the line movement in that game, that was a case where the Sharps were all on the Jets, late in the day, that one. I mean, that was the case where they were, I was still running 6.5 because I had all my public guys still laying the 6.5, and I didn't have a ton of guys taking it back. But there were 6s out there. I mean, early in the week, they did lay the 6 on Indianapolis. They laid 6.5 minus 0.5, and my chart was like, when we did the call, it was way one-sided. By the time they kicked off, I still needed the Jets for a ton. I mean, it was a really big decision for us.
Right.
That's just because the public was still just all over Indianapolis. And I mean, it's a weird one with the Colts this year. I mean, they were down 10-0 at halftime there, and they were down. I mean, opening week they were down like 17 at halftime. It's crazy what's going on there. But I mean, it's a team that we're now trying to figure out, and they're on the road now as a favorite against Tennessee. That you mentioned, you don't want to talk about that, and it's
right.
just like it's a crazy spot because it's like, how do we figure them out? But to address your question, yeah, I mean, we had sharp money earlier. It was interesting because I was sitting here kind of waiting, at 6.5, and then I saw books go down to 6, and I was waiting for the line to bump up because I figured the people who had come in at 6 would be grabbing it when it was 6 again, but it just didn't happen.
So the Sharps who took Indy early in the week and the Sharps who took the Jets late, were they were different groups, or were they the same groups who just changed their mind?
No, absolutely. There's almost no one who changes their mind through the week. I mean, they stick with their position at all. I mean, if guys are looking to go both ways on the game based on line movement, that's another thing. They'll lay 1.5 and they'll take 4 in a game, for example. But no, these guys who laid the 6 and 6.5, none of them came back, and the people who came back on the Jets were definitely a different group.
All right, a very mysterious bunch of people, these so-called Sharps, but we love to hear what you have to say about it. Brent, the first game I want to ask you about, the Philly and the Jets this week. The Sharps took the Jets late last week, and we know that some Sharps took Philly in the futures odds before the season started. So this, Philly's looking like they're deep in it. The Jets kind of in a letdown spot. I'm wondering what the action is for this one. I'm guessing, I couldn't even guess what the public's on here.
You're guessing that you couldn't guess. Well, you can't be wrong in that case then, Peter.
Right, I could guess. Well, I couldn't make a good guess. That I'm right about.
Yeah. The main thing I'll say about this game is the volume, first off. It's just a massively bet game. I mean,
really?
It's the highest bet game on the board. And part of that is because I do have sharp action both ways in this game. They did take the Jets when the line was minus 1.5, minus 0.5. The action came down the Jets there. And when it was 2.5, they were all over Philadelphia. I mean, it's crazy. If you had told me that the Jets were going to be 2-0 and Philadelphia would be 0-2 at this point in time, I would have thought, I don't think, Peter, you dropped that wacky tobacco. But no, I mean, the Jets' money has been coming in when it was 1.5. I got all Eagles money at 2.5, so we're sitting at 2 right now. Even the total 2 is an interesting case. I don't know if you noticed that it dropped down from 47.5 down to 47. We're sitting at 45.5 right now. I've got almost no action on the over, which is surprising in an Eagles game, but I guess people were so impressed with that Jets defense. So under 47 and 47.5 was what I'm going to call some very respectable money. So right now we're in need of the over, but our side we're really in a great position right now. Again, I mean, my count slightly favors Philadelphia, as you would expect, but my volume has been so good we're totally balanced on this game.
And clear sharp action on both sides of this one?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, it was minus 1.5, minus 0.5 for the money that came in on the Jets, and the plus 2.5 was on Philadelphia. I also saw money line action on Philadelphia plus 120. We're now Jets are minus 130. The comeback is plus 110.
Well, I guess that in a way confirms my personal utter confusion on this one. We'll see where the line closes and how it turns out.
Your
and then
confusion
Indy and Tennessee,
has been confirmed, Peter.
I'm sorry?
Your confusion has been confirmed.
Yes, absolutely. And then in Indy, Tennessee, kind of a similar situation, right? What to make of Indianapolis? We know the public loves to bet them, and the public has gotten burned. Here they're a road favorite. Is the public biting on Indy for a third week in a row?
What to make of Indy? What to make of Tennessee, too? That's another team it's kind of hard to figure out. I mean, they absolutely crushed Tampa Bay, who went in and beat New Orleans. Now, New Orleans may not be a very good team, but I mean, they went to Cleveland and lost that game. So they have their home opener now, and Tennessee's a 3-point dog. Right now, I've got Indianapolis -3, -115. And this is a case where we have a public and sharp split. And I don't need to tell you what side the public's on. They're still betting Indianapolis despite being let down. But Tennessee +3.5, definitely a sharp play there. And also the money line Tennessee +160 was sharp. If I look at my count on this game, it's almost like 5-1 in terms of the actual number of wagers I've taken in favor of Indianapolis, but my money's almost dead even or even slightly favoring Tennessee. So Tennessee, the home dog, +3.5, getting the money again. Right now we're Indianapolis -3, -115, but definitely public and sharp split there. I've got nothing but over money in this game, not a ton, but I haven't got. It's interesting. I haven't got a drop of money back on the under. We're sitting at a total of 46 right now.
Clear public sharp split on Indy, Tennessee, and then Cincy, Baltimore is another game where I've heard some strong opinions over the week on both sides, supporting both sides. Of course, I guess anytime you have Andy Dalton involved, that would be expected. Did the Sharps take either side on this one yet? Cincy at Baltimore.
This is another case though where I've got decent, pretty much two-way action on this game. Since the Baltimore action though, -2.5 is, I definitely would call that sharper action. Now they made Baltimore -2.5, -110. We've kind of inched up to 2.5, -115 because we did get some what I would call big bets on the Cincinnati, not square bets, but not guys who are really sharp at all. I would almost call this a public sharp split, but I'm not going to yet just because there's not the money that came in on Cincinnati. Like I said, it's respectable and big money, but it's not guys who you definitely put on the list as we refer to it. But Baltimore -2.5 was definitely the sharper of the action. In terms of the wager volume, almost dead even in terms of the number of wagers I've taken. My money slightly favors Baltimore, which again was the bigger bets at 2.5 that we took. So total, absolutely nothing at all involved in this one. But like I said, the early bet on Baltimore is probably the sharpest of the lot.
Okay, a lot of interesting betting situations, betting profiles for NFL Week 3. What else can you tell us about the rest of the card, Brent?
I want to say it is crazy two-way action on a lot of these games, which means our volume is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just kind of one of those cases where, if numbers, the games don't land, we're going to be okay. I mean, like Pittsburgh at a pick in St. Louis, like +1 and 2.5. Great two-way action from sharps, from big bets, from everything. I would say like San Diego, Minnesota is another case like that. San Diego +2.5, Minnesota -1.5. So we're sitting at -2 on Minnesota. Philly and the Jets we talked about, the 2.5, the 1.5. Oakland and Cleveland's another case where actually, it sounds and looks like an ugly game, but I actually got really good action on that game. Oakland was +3.5, Cleveland -3, -120. Atlanta and Dallas. Atlanta had a pick, Dallas +1.5. It's just crazy in terms of the two-way action. All those games I mentioned right there have had a ton of wagering volume, so we're looking real good heading into this week. The sharp action that you did want to talk about, though, is Jacksonville, perhaps. Can I sell you some Jacksonville?
Wow, really? Okay,
Peter?
sure.
Yeah, and when the line was 14, I had a couple of sharps actually by the half point. So I had Jacksonville +14.5, -120. Sharps came in there. We're down to 13.5 right now. As you can expect, the public is all over New England, so we're sitting at 13.5 right now. But when it was 14, the Sharps did come in on Jacksonville, buying the half point. Oakland and Cleveland, the under there was a sharp play, under 43. We're sitting at just 42.5 right now, kind of bouncing back and forth. I've got some, a little bit of public money on the over, which is typical in a case like that, but my money definitely favors the under there. Tennessee as a home dog, we touched on that already. Miami, they're at home to Buffalo. Miami -2.5 was sharp.
Wow.
We're sitting at 3 right now, maybe 3.15, but as a home favorite of 2.5, if you go less than 3, they jumped on Miami there. And also the under of that same game, Baltimore-Miami, under 43.5. It's interesting because it's almost like a public sharp split on the over as well. I've got probably twice as many bets on the over of that game, and probably about, I'm going to say like 8 times more money on the under. So it's kind of like a public sharp split. The Sharps are definitely on the under. Buffalo, Miami, under 43.5. And Detroit, the Sunday night game, they're at home to Denver. Again, Denver's 2-0, Detroit's 0-2. Detroit +3.5. That was sharp too. We're sitting at Denver -3, -120 right now. And again, this is a case where I've got a lot of public money on Denver. My count's almost like 5-1 in favor of Denver, and my money's dead even because of the sharp action on Detroit. So Jacksonville +14.5, -20 was sharp. Oakland, Cleveland under 43. Tennessee +3.5. Miami -2.5, and Detroit +3.5. Those will be the sharp plays for the week, Peter.
All right, interesting week. NFL Week 3. Brent, thanks as always for your information, and we'll talk to you again next week.